I'm Karl. I was detected with kidney disease in 1984. I was very fortunate with good management. I managed to survive for 20 years before I reached end-stage renal failure. I then started renal dialysis, and about 3 months later I was very lucky to receive a kidney transplant. I had my tests done while I was on dialysis, my compatibility tests and such like, and I was put on the transfer list. My call-up came very early. It was totally unexpected. I'd done very little preparation, and the whole process of entering hospital happened so quickly it was almost a blur. In retrospect, I probably would have done some things differently. I would have been better prepared.
He would have usually had a list.
Yes.
He always got the yellow post-it note, and he would have had what he had to do. So this way, it was probably the best way.
I think later on, because I was in hospital longer than I thought I would be, I would have certainly put my financial affairs in much better order, because it was a huge burden on Helen to continue working, look after me, look after the children, and to try to manage the finances as well, and the house. So it was very difficult, and I would have done a lot more in retrospect to put all of that in order and make sure it was more self-managed. We got the call at 10:30 at night. We were in here watching the Pirates of the Caribbean, and we were near the end of that film. We still haven't seen the end of that. The phone rang, and I asked my youngest daughter if she'd answer the phone and please ask her friends not to call so late at night. And she walked back into the room and she said, "Dad, some doctor wants to talk to you." So it was my call up to go for a transplant, and we were required to be at the Princess Alexandra Hospital within about an hour. So
How did you feel?
I think thinking about that it all happened so quickly. You've got a range of emotions running through you, but it happened so quickly that you're just focused on getting there. And it's afterwards you only think, my gosh, I had all these emotions. It is a very emotional time, but we went to the emergency. We were processed through there very quickly, and it wasn't till later on, when I had a short time to sleep in the early hours of the morning, that I probably lay there and thought about what was happening. But it was an incredibly emotional process. Yes, I knew there was another person going into surgery to receive the other kidney, or possibly both kidneys, and that I was second in line. So that was an anxious wait, but also it was a mixture of anxiety and excitement at that stage, and just quite overwhelming emotion that I was actually going through this process. Helen was there, and the last thing I remember is entering the theatre and joking with some of the staff, and then it was when I was waking up was my next recollection of what had happened. Well, post-operative, I can remember having an amazing amount of pain. That was soon settled, with the adjustment of my pain relief. And I was very drowsy. I remember Helen coming in, and I really was just ready to keep sleeping. But I do believe I had a huge emotional feeling at that stage. It was very overwhelming, the process that I'd been through, and the receiving of a transplant and the opportunity to have a new life was an incredibly emotional event for me.
It's been hard at times, but also rewarding when you see when he comes through the bad times. But it has been very worrying. And I know there were times when I went into hospital to see him, and I'd think, I just didn't know what to expect, because he was a changed person with this emotional Karl that I suddenly had to contend with. And I remember at one stage coming out, and our 2 daughters were with me, and I was in tears, and they said, "Oh, what's the matter, Mum?" And I said, "Well, I don't know that Karl in there. I like the other one, I want the other one back." But I found out later that there's, I should have just ignored all that and not got upset. But I think when you've been through all that I had, and as with the family, you're also dealing with the 2 daughters and trying to keep their spirits up and his spirits up, and who's keeping my spirits up, and I realised that don't really take don't take issue with that, because it's just the drugs. I heard the drugs can make them all out of sorts and totally different, but he certainly is a much more mellow person to what he used to be. And now he's the one that's usually crying in the sad movies or things like that. And yet it was always me who'd be crying, and he and the 2 girls would be laughing. "Oh, Mum, you're not crying, are you?" Now I can tell. If it's a little bit sad, I look over and I can see the bottom lip. He never used to be like that. So it's been, the end result has been wonderful, but it was a very hard slog there for, years beforehand, I suppose, with, the build up to it, because it coloured a lot of our decisions in life, from when Karl was first diagnosed to when the transplant took place.
Well, I had nearly 18 months of problems following the transplant, and I suffered significant pain and probably significant setbacks during that time, and I realised that I needed help at times because my own ability to keep managing these setbacks was starting to diminish. And I was very lucky. I got good counselling help, and it gave me the tools to manage to fight through. So I was able to recognise when I was losing control, and I was able then to implement strategies to deal with that. But fortunately, when I had my final operation, everything clicked, and from then on I've enjoyed good health. So I've had 4.5 years of good health with this kidney now. I feel that I've changed, emotionally I've changed a lot since the transplant. I'm overall a much more emotional person. My priorities are completely different, but I don't handle stress as well as I used to, and I still have a level of anxiety about certain issues, but it's normally about small issues as opposed to big issues. And as I say, don't sweat the small stuff, but I can do at times, yes.
I think you just got to ride it, just take each day as it comes. I don't think there's nothing you can't foresee, because there's no roadmap that says this is what will happen, because it's totally a surprise. You don't know what's going to happen, and you've just got to take each day and hopefully not too many setbacks. But I think when operations are concerned, I think there's always a possibility of complications and things like that. Well, Karl experienced them, and we did too as a family, because we went along for the ride. But I think that's just go with it, go with the flow. There's nothing else. You can't change anything, and just be a support, as long as you're the support, for them.
I think for transplant patients, the important thing is to learn as much as you can about what's going to happen to you, and ask as many questions of your medical practitioners as you possibly need to or can, to make sure you're fully informed. That's the first thing. The second thing is to be really totally prepared for when you go into hospital. You don't know what's going to happen. It could be longer than you think. It is already a long process. So make sure you have all of your affairs in order and all of your backups in place for whilst you're away, because it does take a lot of time out of both yours and your carer's life. The next thing is to remain totally optimistic. You must be optimistic, you must have hope, and you can't afford to give up hope. It's very important to be positive. The other thing is to put your faith in the medical staff. We have excellent medical staff and they are very, very good, and they are trying very hard to get the very best result for you. So place your faith in them, but ask questions.